I'm going to walk you through my ratio test worksheet. This way, when you're talking to a lead or a customer, you can pre-qualify them very quickly, probably within 5-10 minutes. All right, so as you're talking to a customer, and I'm going to minimize my mug here so you can see this. As you're speaking with a customer, there's different places where you could fill in what they're telling you when they're talking to you about their situation. I like to make the conversation somewhat casual so that way they feel more relaxed and not so much pressure to get answers right or what have you. You know, if they know where they are, I say, where are you credit wise? Do you know if you're, good, fair, excellent? So they might have a guess about that. So I can even fill this in if they know their credit score. So if they say, "Oh, I'm pretty sure I'm over 750," and then my partner is maybe not quite at 700 yet, so I'll just put in like 680. So those are the kind of estimated credit scores, and you could even put in, if you're talking to someone and you want to know the difference between the two credit scores, you can fill in their names too. So that way this is Sam's estimated credit score and this is Pat's estimated credit score. Then as you're talking to them, you'll ask, oh, what is it that you do? For work, do you work for yourself? Do you work for a company? So Sam might say, yeah, I get a base salary of $6,000 a month. Okay, great. And then usually I get, at the end of the year, I get a bonus. Okay. And that's about $5,000 for the year. Okay. So then we'll put $5,000 divided by 12. So that's how much they would get a month. What about you, Pat? I get a set salary of $85,000 for the year. Okay. No overtime, no bonus, nothing like that. Okay, great. Your income before taxes is $13,500. Does that sound about right? Yeah, that sounds about right. Great, perfect. Okay, so we're going to skip this section and we're going to go down to what their debts are. Okay, you told me that your credit scores are in the good to excellent range. So what's on your credit report? Do you have car payments, student loans, credit cards, personal loans, things like that? Oh yeah, we have all of the above. All right, so walk me through that. What's your car payment per month? Oh well, we have a car lease and it's almost up. So right now we pay $600 a month, but we don't know what we're going to do after the lease. Okay, well, lenders assume you're either going to buy the car or get into another lease. So, oops, sorry about that. So we're just going to keep that 6,000 as part of the scenario. What the heck did I press? Okay, here we go. Let's go. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so car payment, and I'm just going to put in here that it's a lease, but it's $600 a month. Okay, so if that changes, you'll let me know. What about your credit cards? We pay probably between our different credit cards, we probably pay about $300 a month. Okay. And you can also break that down. So they might say, oh, I have a Capital One card. We pay like $150 for that one. And then we have a Chase card. And we pay like, I don't know, like $50 for that one. And then we pay, we have Citibank. We pay like $100 on that one. Okay, something like that, right? You could break those down too. All right, what about your student loans? Okay. Well, Sam's paid his off, but we're still working on Pat's. So it's about $500 a month we pay on that. Okay, perfect. And anything else? Any other obligations? We have a personal loan. That's $100 a month. Okay, perfect. There you go. All right, so that's their debts. So what we're aiming for is we want the back-end ratio right here to be, for most programs, it's going to be 45% or less. Now, because they have credit is not too bad. You might be able to push that up to 50% or 49%. This front end ratio, if they're looking at like FHA, cannot be more than 47%. So we're going to play around with the numbers on their housing expense. So, we'll ask them, do you plan to put down at least 20%? So for this scenario, we'll just say yes. Okay, they're going to put down 20%. Fine. And then we'll just put placeholder figures in here. Property taxes, let's say, I don't know, $600, and then we'll say home insurance is like $200. Okay. So now we're figuring what's left. What is left that we can use for the principal and interest, which would be the loan. So principal and interest is, I don't know, I'm just going to put like $4,000. Okay, so that's a little bit too much if we're trying to get to 45% back end ratio. So let's do 3,500. Okay, so now we're at 43. So somewhere between 3,500 and $4,000, they would, qualify. So let's try 3,800. Okay, so like a little bit less than that. 37, let's try 3,750. Perfect. Okay, so 3,750, that would be the principal and interest. And then we're guesstimating the property taxes and insurance, but you're explaining to the customer, hey, based on the numbers that you've given me so far, a lender would approve you for a loan as long as your housing costs are not going to exceed $4,500. I usually round it down. And they're like, and so then we might ask them, does that seem like it's within your budget? So number one, they might say, yeah, we could swing that. Or they might say, that's a bit too high, and then you could adjust these numbers accordingly. So let's say this was fine with them. We need to come up with a scenario where their mortgage payment, their principal and interest is not going to be more than $3,750. Now, this is where you're going to use your mortgage calculator. Yes, I have the big desk version, but you might have one. There's also an app on my phone. I have this mortgage calculator also on my phone as an app, but that's something that you should invest in if you haven't already, is make sure you have a mortgage calculator. Okay, so we're going to put that $3,750 in as the payment, and then we'll put it as a 30-year mortgage, and we'll put the interest rate 6.25. Okay, and that gives us the loan amount. So that loan amount is $609. So that's the loan amount that they would qualify, $609. If they're putting 20% down, that means they could buy a home for $760. So, and that's how you quickly just tell them, hey, you roughly qualify for a home price of $760 if you're putting 20% down. Now, one of the things that we could double check is, okay, so if we have $760 as the price, you may want to check your property tax rate depending on what area you are in. So see, the property taxes are going to be higher than I had estimated, and home insurance might be high too. No, I was about right. Came in a little bit higher there. So see, we're already a little too high there. So let's adjust that down a little bit. Okay, so now we're working with 3,550 is the new payment. We'll use the same interest rate and the same term. And so that loan amount is $576. And like I said, they're going to put 20% down, which is 80% LTV. So that's $720 is the price. Yeah, so based on these numbers, about $720. So if I originally saw my calculator was $760, I might even knock that down a little bit and say like $700, and then tweak the numbers a little bit and get up to $720. In that initial conversation, as I'm talking about pre-qualifying someone, I'm giving them a rough estimate and then disclosing to them, hey, until you turn in your documents, we do the credit check, we won't be able to pre-approve you, but this gives you a rough idea of where you stand. And this gives you more of a a human determination and not just something where you're plugging numbers on an online calculator. So, giving them assurance that this is what underwriters are going to do. There's even a section on here where, say, for example, they didn't qualify for as much as they wanted. We could talk about, okay, well, perhaps you pay off one of your credit cards. If you paid off your Capital One, and then you could put on here, Capital One is going to be paid off. This one's going to be paid off, and it's, I don't know, $8,000. So that way it's kind of notes for you. There's also a section here for notes. So, this is a leftover note from someone I was working on. We're going to rescore up to 750, or you could add on here, plans to pay off Capital One. They plan to refinance the student loan, something like that. Now, what is also a good exercise is if you are not licensed, so there's limitations on what conversations you can have with the client if you're not licensed. But in order to support your loan officer, this is information that you could gather. So you could fill this in for your loan officer and not disclose to the customer, you are pre-qualified for X. You could just say, hey, I'm going to gather this information for the loan officer, and then they're going to run numbers, and then they're going to go over your different loan options based on the information that you're giving to me right now. So this is something you can quickly collect this information, how much they make, what their debts are, and what you estimate they would qualify for. And that way you could save this and give this to your loan officer so that then they could work up a proposal for the client.